It started with a flicker, a sharp, electric snap that cut through the stillness of my backyard like a whip cracking in the dark. Then came the scream, high-pitched and glorious, echoing over the cedar fence from my neighbor Karen's place. It wasn't just any scream, it was the kind you'd hear if someone's designer flip-flops melted into the pavement on a scorching Georgia day. I stood there, frozen for a second, my coffee mug steaming in the chilly 2 a.m. air, and I couldn't help but grin. Because that scream? It meant my plan had worked. Karen, the queen of entitlement in our little HOA-ruled cul-de-sac, had finally plugged into something she couldn't unplug from. Before I continue the story, write a comment below. Where are you watching from? Like if you want to constantly win in any conflicts. Let me rewind a bit. I'm Jake, a systems engineer who spends his days designing power grids for tech companies. Think server farms that keep your streaming binge alive. Electricity's my thing. I geek out over voltage drops and solar inverters the way some folks obsess over football stats. I live in a tidy suburb outside Raleigh, North Carolina, where the lawns are pristine, the mailboxes match, and the HOA meetings are a monthly soap opera. It's quiet here, or it was, until Karen moved in 2 summers ago. She rolled up in a shiny white SUV, Prada sunglasses perched on her nose, and a voice that could wake a coma patient 3 counties over. Divorced, loud, and armed with a teenage son named Tyler, she turned our peaceful street into her personal kingdom. At first, it was little stuff, yelling at kids for cutting through her yard, hosting wine-soaked brunches that spilled into the street. But then came the ATV. Tyler's electric 4-wheeler roared through the neighborhood like a chainsaw on wheels, and every night, it needed juice. That's where I came in, or rather, where my power did. I didn't notice it right away. I've got a tricked-out solar setup, panels on the roof, a battery bank in the garage, the works. It's my pride and joy, and I monitor it like a hawk through an app on my phone. One night, flipping through the logs while sipping a beer on my porch, I spotted something weird. Between midnight and 3 a.m., there was a steady 2.1 kilowatt-hour dip. Not my AC. Not my fridge. Not even the porch lights I sometimes forget to turn off. It was a ghost drain, and it was happening every night. Now, I'm not the paranoid type, but I'm also not the guy who ignores a glitch. I started poking around. The next morning, trimming my azaleas along the fence, I saw it, a bright yellow extension cord snaking from Karen's side, disappearing behind my shed. My shed doesn't even have an outdoor outlet. Unless, no way. She wouldn't. Would she? That night, I flipped off every breaker in my house except one, the line running to the backyard. I waited. I was glued to my app. At 1:47 a.m., bam, 2.1 kilowatts, right on cue. I grabbed my flashlight, crept outside, and followed the fence line. The cord was gone, retracted like a thief in the night, but I'd caught it red-handed in the data. Karen was stealing my power, and she didn't even have the decency to ask. I could have marched over there, banged on her door, and demanded answers. But where's the fun in that? I'm an engineer. I solve problems with precision, not shouting matches. So I hatched a plan, something subtle, something she'd never see coming. Karen thought she was slick, sipping her iced latte and laughing off my solar panels like they were a free buffet. She didn't know she'd just plugged herself into a game she couldn't win. Across the street, while I was sketching circuits in my head, my neighbor Emily was dealing with her own Karen drama. She just found her garden lights flickering again, 3rd time that week. Little did she know, we were about to become partners in a neighborhood takedown that'd make the HOA newsletter for years. The next morning, I woke up buzzing not from the coffee, though that helped, but from the thrill of the hunt. Karen had no idea she'd just tripped over the starting line of a race she couldn't win. I stood at my kitchen window, peering through the blinds as she strutted across her driveway in yoga pants and a tank top that screamed, "I'm too good for this neighborhood." She was yelling into her phone, probably spinning some tale about how the world owed her, while Tyler slouched behind her, kicking at the gravel like a sulky prince. I smirked. Time to turn up the heat. I wasn't about to let her leech off my grid like some suburban vampire. This wasn't just about the 2.1 kilowatts, it was personal now. She crossed a line, and I was going to draw it back in neon. I grabbed my toolbox, hauled it to the shed, and got to work. The plan? A decoy outlet. Not some sloppy Home Depot plug. Mind you, this was a masterpiece. I wired it to look legit, tucked it just behind the shed where that yellow cord loved to slink, and hooked it to a custom circuit. It'd deliver a perfectly safe, perfectly legal jolt, nothing to hurt anyone, just enough to make any charger plugged into it wish it had never been born. Think of it like a mousetrap for entitled neighbors, snapping shut with a satisfying pop. By noon, I had it live. I tested it with an old hairdryer, 3 amps, zap, fried in seconds. Beautiful. I wiped the sweat off my brow, cracked open a Coke, and waited. That night, I barely slept, my phone propped on my nightstand, the app glowing like a beacon. At 2:13 a.m., it happened. Power draw detected, 2.4 kilowatts. My heart slammed against my ribs. I bolted to the window, peeked through the blinds, and there it was, a faint blue flash lighting up the fence line, followed by that glorious scream. Karen's voice tore through the night, shrill and furious, like a banshee who'd just lost her Wi-Fi. Tyler stumbled out in pajama pants, flailing at the smoking ATV charger like it was a possessed campfire. I bit my lip to keep from laughing out loud. Gotcha. The next morning, I sipped my coffee slow and smug, watching the chaos unfold. Karen stormed around her backyard in slippers, waving her arms like she was directing traffic at a NASCAR race. Sabotage, she screeched into her phone. That nerd next door booby-trapped me. Oh, Karen, if only you knew how much fun I was having. Tyler dragged the charred charger under a tarp, his shoulders slumped like his whole teenage empire had just crumbled. I felt a pang of something guilt, maybe, but it evaporated the second I remembered her laughing in my face when I'd asked about the cord. It's just a little power, Jake. Chill out, she'd said, patting my arm like I was some clueless kid. Chill out? Nah, sweetheart. I was just warming up. Meanwhile, down the street, Emily was piecing her own puzzle together. She'd cornered me at the mailbox that afternoon, her brown eyes wide with suspicion. Jake, you ever notice your lights dimming at weird hours? She asked, twisting a strand of hair around her finger. My garden lanterns keep resetting, drives me nuts. I raised an eyebrow. Every night, around 2 a.m.? Her jaw dropped. How'd you know? I leaned in, voice low. Stick with me, Em. We've got a power thief, and I've got the receipts. Back at my place, I checked the logs. Karen's little midnight heist had cost me $17 in juice over the past week alone. Pocket change, sure, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the gall, the smirk, the way she thought she could waltz through life taking whatever she wanted. I fired off a quick email to the HOA, attaching the data, expecting them to slap her wrist. Big mistake. 2 days later, a letter slid under my door, me in trouble for hostile neighbor behavior and unsafe electrical mods. Karen had flipped the script, claiming I'd rigged a death trap. My blood boiled. She wasn't just stealing, she was playing dirty. I stormed to my workshop, slammed the door, and stared at my workbench. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Karen thought she could outsmart me with her HOA cronies and her crocodile tears. She didn't know who she was messing with. I grabbed a notepad and started sketching cameras, sensors, a smarter trap. If she wanted war, I'd bring the whole damn grid. Across town, at the HOA office, some pencil pusher named Brian was probably chuckling over Karen's complaint, thinking this was just another petty neighbor spat. He had no clue the storm that was brewing, or that I was about to light up his inbox with evidence that'd make his head spin. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was worried, but because my brain was on fire. Karen's HOA stunt lit a fuse in me, and I wasn't about to let her smug little victory stand. By 3 a.m., I was hunched over my workbench, surrounded by wires, a soldering iron, and a half-empty bag of Doritos. The decoy outlet had been a warning shot. Now I was building an arsenal. She wanted to play dirty? Fine. I'd play smart. And trust me, when an engineer gets mad, it's not yelling or fists, it's circuits and data, and I was about to bury her in both. I upgraded the trap. The new outlet got a tiny data logger, disguised as a beat-up sprinkler head I'd painted to blend into the mulch. It'd track every volt she stole, timestamp it, and ping my phone the second she plugged in. But that wasn't enough. I needed eyes. I dug out 3 old security cameras from a box in the garage, leftovers from a failed smart home project, and got creative. One went in a fake birdhouse by the shed, another in a floodlight overlooking her yard, and the third along the fence, hidden behind a climbing rose. All wireless, all streaming to my laptop, backed up to the cloud. If Karen so much as breathed near my power, I'd have her on 4K. By sunrise, I was wired on adrenaline and sweet tea, pacing my backyard like a general before battle. I even tossed in a decoy cord, bright orange, coiled over the fence like I'd forgotten it after yard work. It was bait, and I knew she'd bite. She couldn't resist free juice. I tested the setup, plugged in a junk charger, watched the app spike, saw the outlet zap it dead. Perfect. I leaned against the shed, grinning like a kid who'd just aced a science fair. This wasn't just revenge, it was art. That afternoon, I caught Emily watering her hydrangeas. Hey, Em, I called, jogging over. You up for a little neighborhood detective work? She squinted at me, hose dripping onto her flip-flops. What's that mean, Jake? I told her everything. The cord, the trap, the HOA letter. Her face went from confused to furious in 10 seconds flat. That witch. My lanterns. I knew it wasn't the wiring. She dropped the hose, hands on hips. What's the plan? I smirked. We catch her red-handed. You in? She nodded, fierce. Oh, I'm in. Meanwhile, Karen was doubling down. I spotted her through my kitchen window, schmoozing with HOA Brian on her porch. He was scribbling on a clipboard, nodding like she was reciting scripture. She pointed at my house, her voice carrying over the cul-de-sac. He's unhinged, Brian. A danger to my son. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. Unhinged. I'd show her unhinged precision. That night, at 1:59 a.m., my phone buzzed. Power draw, 2.3 kilowatts. I flipped to the live feed. There was Tyler, hoodie up, plugging that cursed cord into my decoy. Flash, pop, smoke. He yelped, yanked the cord, and bolted, leaving the charger sizzling like a 4th of July sparkler. I punched the air. Round 2 mine. The next morning, I printed the footage, screenshots, logs, the works, and marched to Emily's place. She opened the door, coffee in hand, and gasped when I showed her. That's her kid. Right there, she said, jabbing the paper. Jake, this is gold. I nodded. It's not just me she's hitting. Check your logs. Bet she's tapped you too. She grabbed her phone, scrolled her smart meter app, and froze. Last night, 1.9 kilowatts gone. That's her, isn't it? I grinned. Welcome to the resistance, Em. By noon, word was spreading. Down the block, Mike, the guy with the tricked-out grill, was muttering about his patio fridge dying overnight. Sarah, the quiet mom with the perfect roses, mentioned her porch lights resetting. I invited them over, fired up my laptop, and played the footage. Mike's laugh boomed through my living room. She's been juicing us all. That's Olympic-level nerve. Sarah's eyes narrowed. I've got a toddler, Jake. She's messing with my family. The air crackled with anger, and I felt it. Something bigger was brewing. That evening, Karen came knocking, fists banging my door like she was auditioning for a crime drama. I opened it, calm as a summer breeze. What did you do to Tyler's ATV? She snarled, her face red, no sunglasses to hide the fury. He's traumatized. I leaned against the frame. Maybe he shouldn't sneak onto my property at night, Karen. She blinked, thrown off. I've got footage, I added, tapping my temple. Logs too. Wanna see? Her mouth opened, then shut. I handed her a USB stick. Everything's there. Next move's yours. I shut the door, heart pounding, and watched her stomp off through the peephole. She was rattled, and I was just getting started. Across the street, Emily was texting me. Mike's in. Sarah too. We're building a group chat. Karen's blackout. This is war. I typed back. Good. Let's light her up. The air felt electric that next morning, not from my circuits, but from the buzz rippling through the cul-de-sac. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the world shift. Karen's tantrum at my door had flipped a switch, not just for me, but for everyone she'd been draining dry. The group chat, Karen's blackout, was blowing up. Emily sent a blurry pic of her meter logs, 2 kilowatts siphoned last week. Mike chimed in with a rant about his grill fridge. $1.50 of ribeyes ruined, man. Sarah added a screenshot of her porch light resets, timestamped 2:07 a.m. My phone pinged nonstop, and I couldn't stop grinning. This wasn't just my fight anymore, it was ours. I cracked my knuckles and got to work. Evidence was piling up, but I needed it airtight. I synced the camera feeds, cross-referenced the logs, and built a timeline. Every zap, every scream, every kilowatt Karen stole. It was a masterpiece of nerd rage, and I loved every second of it. By noon, I had a 20-page PDF, screenshots, charts, even a map of her cord's path across the fence. I emailed it to the group with a single line, she's toast. Emily replied instantly. Jake, you're a freaking genius. HOA meetings Thursday. Let's bury her. Across the street, Mike was already rigging his own trap. Borrowed your decoy idea, man. He texted, sending a pic of a fake outlet by his patio. She touches my juice again. She's getting a surprise. Sarah, meanwhile, was on the phone with the utility company, her voice sharp as she demanded an audit. My kid's nightlight flickered last night. Unacceptable. I could hear her through her open window, and it hit me hard. Karen wasn't just annoying us. She was screwing with people's lives. That fueled me more than any coffee ever could. Thursday rolled around, and the HOA clubhouse was packed, standing room only. I walked in with Emily, Mike, and Sarah, our USB sticks loaded like weapons. Karen sat up front, arms crossed, smirking like she owned the place. Ryan, the HOA lackey, opened the meeting with his usual drone about mailbox colors, but the room was restless. Emily nudged me. Showtime. I stood, hard hammering, and held up my drive. I've got proof Karen's been stealing power from half this street, I said, voice steady. The crowd murmured. Karen's smirk faltered. One by one, we took the floor. I showed the footage, Tyler sneaking over my fence, the flash, the smoke. Emily followed with her meter logs, her voice shaking with anger. This isn't just petty, it's theft. Mike slammed his fist on the table, showing his ruined fridge bill. I'm out real money because of her. Sarah went last, quiet but lethal. My daughter's scared to sleep without her light. That's on you, Karen. The room erupted, shouts, gasps, a few cheers. Karen jumped up, face beet red. This is harassment. You're all jealous of me. Jealous? I almost laughed. She was drowning, and she didn't even know it. Brian tried to calm things down, but the tide had turned. Even Greg, the HOA president and Karen's old buddy, looked queasy as I handed him my folder, complete with a police report I'd filed that morning. Yeah, I'd called the cops after her last stunt, and the officer had laughed when he saw the footage. She's got no leg to stand on, man, he'd said. Now Greg flipped through my pages, sweat beading on his forehead. Review this, he stammered. Too late, pal. The neighbors were done playing nice. That night, I sat in my workshop, replaying the meeting in my head. The way Karen's voice cracked when she yelled, the way the crowd drowned her out, it felt like justice, raw and real. My phone buzzed. Emily, utility guy's coming tomorrow. Says it's fraud if it's over 500 kilowatts. I ran the numbers. Karen's haul was pushing 3,200 kilowatts across 4 months. Fraud? Oh, she was in deep now. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just about power anymore. It was about power trips, and hers was crashing hard. Down the block, Sarah was tucking her daughter in, whispering, no more flickers, baby. Mike was firing up his grill, testing a new lockbox on his outlet. And me? I was tweaking my cameras, ready for Karen's next move, because I knew she wouldn't go quietly. She never did. But neither would we. The cul-de-sac was awake, united, and humming with a fury she'd never outrun. The next morning, I woke to a text from Emily that hit like a jolt. Utility guys here. Karen's yard looks like a crime scene. I bolted to the window, coffee sloshing over my hand, and saw it, 2 guys in neon vests poking around her backyard with clipboards and meters. Karen stood on her porch, arms flailing, her voice a siren of panic cutting through the crisp Raleigh air. This is a witch hunt, she shrieked, but the utility crew didn't flinch. I grinned so hard my face hurt. The storm was here, and it wasn't just mine anymore. It was the whole damn neighborhood's. I grabbed my laptop and checked the group chat. Mike had posted a blurry pic of the scene. They're pulling cords out of her bushes. Man, jackpot. Sarah chimed in. Just saw Tyler sneak out the back. Kid looked spooked. Emily added, utility dude says it's over 3,000 kilowatts stolen. That's felony territory. My pulse raced. Felony? Holy hell, Karen had dug herself a hole deeper than the Grand Canyon, and we were all holding shovels. By noon, the cul-de-sac was buzzing literally and figuratively. I met Emily and Mike at Sarah's place, where we huddled around her kitchen table like a war council. She'd baked cookies, stress baking, she said, but the air was thick with something else, vindication. They found hookups at my place too, Sarah whispered, her voice tight. She tapped my garage outlet for her stupid parties. Mike slammed his fist down, rattling the plate. Parties? She's been running a rave on my dime. I pulled up my logs, 3,200 kilowatts across 4 months, $900 in juice, split between us like a parasite's tap. We weren't just mad, we were livid. That afternoon, the HOA caved. A certified letter hit my mailbox, gold seal and all, stating Karen's privileges were revoked, pool, clubhouse, the works. Brian showed up at my door, looking like a kid caught cheating on a test. Jake, we're dropping the fine on you, he muttered. She's the problem, not you. I nodded, cool as ice. Took you long enough. He shuffled off, and I texted the group. HOA's out. She's cornered. Emily replied, "Good. Utilities next." Across town, the utility crew was wrapping up. I watched from my porch as they handed Karen a thick envelope. Her face went ghost white. Later, I got the scoop from Sarah, who'd sweet-talked one of the techs. "It's a subpoena," she said, eyes wide. She didn't let them inspect her house, so they're forcing it. $1,700 in back-billed energy plus fines. I whistled low. That wasn't pocket change, that was a knockout punch. But Karen? She didn't flinch. She stormed inside, slammed the door, and cranked her blinds shut. Denial was her armor, and she was clinging to it like a life raft. The next day, the group chat exploded again. Mike found string lights in her trash. Those were MY kilowatts. Sarah, Tyler's selling the ATV online. Guess who's broke? Emily, HOA's calling an emergency meeting tonight. Greg's resigning. I leaned back, soaking it in. This wasn't just justice, it was a reckoning. We'd turned her power trip into a blackout, and she was scrambling in the dark. That night, the clubhouse was electric, pun intended. Greg stepped down, mumbling apologies, and a new president, Lisa, took over. She was a no-nonsense nurse who lived here longer than any of us. "This ends now," she said, voice like steel. "Karen's fined $2,000 for violations, and we're amending the bylaws, utility thefts banned, inspections mandatory." The crowd cheered, and I felt a rush, pride, relief, something fierce. Karen wasn't there. She'd stormed out days ago, and now she was a ghost. Back home, I sat in my workshop, replaying it all. The screams, the flashes, the way she'd glared at me like I'd burned her world down. Maybe I had. My phone buzzed. Emily. Neighbors are talking. She hit 6 houses. Jake. 6. I stared at the screen, my gut twisting. 6 families, messed with for months, all because she thought rules didn't apply. I typed back, "She's done. We won." But I knew it wasn't over, not until every what was accounted for. Down the street, Sarah was hugging her daughter, whispering, "Lights stay on tonight, sweetie." Mike was grilling steaks, laughing with his wife about Karen's tap. And me? I was tweaking my solar app, watching the numbers hold steady, no dips, no ghosts. The cul-de-sac was alive, humming with a quiet fury that'd outlast her any day. The sun dipped low over Raleigh that next evening, painting the cul-de-sac in a warm orange glow, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. I sat on my porch, a cold beer in hand, watching the neighborhood breathe again. No ATV roaring, no cords snaking where they didn't belong, no Karen screeching like a reality TV reject. It was quiet, but not the tense kind, just pure, hard-earned calm. We'd done it. She was down, and we were still standing. If you've stuck with me this far, hit that subscribe button. I've got more stories where this came from, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Karen's fall wasn't loud. It was slow, messy, and oh so satisfying. After the utility subpoena landed, her backyard went dark. No more parties, no string lights, no karaoke blasting off-key renditions of Sweet Caroline. The ATV vanished. Tyler posted it on Craigslist for $300, a steal for anyone who didn't mind a fried battery. Rumor had it she'd sold it to cover the $1,700 utility bill, but the HOA's $2,000 fine was still looming like a storm cloud. She was bleeding cash, and the neighbors? We were popping popcorn, watching her empire crumble. I caught her one morning, dragging a rusty hose across her yard in a neon tracksuit that screamed desperation. She sprayed her wilted petunias, humming loudly, trying to act like nothing had changed. But everything had. Mike waved at me from his grill, shouting, "Steaks tonight. Jake, no more spoiled meat." Sarah pushed her daughter's stroller past, smiling for real, not the tight-lipped nod she'd mastered under Karen's reign. Emily texted the group. "She's got gnomes now." Gnomes? Who's she kidding? I laughed out loud. Karen was grasping at straws, but no one was buying the quirky neighbor act. The HOA, under Lisa's iron grip, turned into something new. She pushed through rules that'd make your head spin. Tamper-proof outlets mandatory, $500 fines for unauthorized hookups, random checks if anyone complained. I even helped Mike and Sarah install lockboxes on their power lines, showing them how to track usage with a cheap app. "You're a wizard, Jake," Sarah said, her eyes bright. "Nah," I grinned, "just a guy who hates freeloaders." The cul-de-sac wasn't just safe, it was fortified, a fortress of folks who'd had enough. Then came the final zap. 2 weeks later, I was tinkering with my solar panels when Karen shuffled up to my fence. No sunglasses, no bravado, just her, looking like she'd aged a decade. "Hey," she mumbled, barely meeting my eyes. I turned, wrench in hand, and waited. I, owe you an apology. My eyebrows shot up. For what? I asked, voice flat. The power? The lies? The cops? She flinched. All of it. I didn't think it was a big deal. I stared, the air thick between us. It's always a big deal when you take what's not yours, I said. She nodded, slow and small, then walked away, deflated, not defeated, but close enough. I didn't forgive her, not yet. Maybe never. But that moment? It was a win sweeter than any circuit I'd ever wired. She'd finally seen the cost, and it wasn't just dollars, it was everything she'd strutted around with. Status, control, that smug little throne she built. Gone. The group chat lit up that night. Emily. Did she really apologize? Mike. Hell froze over. Sarah. Good. Let her stew. I typed back. She's out of juice. We're not. Days turned to weeks, and the cul-de-sac transformed. Mike hosted a barbecue, real steaks, no Karen tax. Sarah's daughter giggled on a tricycle, her nightlight steady every night. Emily started a garden club, and I taught a few folks how to monitor their grids. We weren't just neighbors anymore, we were a crew, bonded by the chaos we'd survived. Karen faded into the background, her house quiet, her gnomes collecting dust. Tyler mowed lawns now, head down, no more Prince vibes. They were ghosts, and we were thriving. One evening, I sat on my porch, the sky clear, the solar app pinging steady, no dips, no thieves. A kid rode by on a bike, regular pedals, no motor, and waved. I waved back, the beer cold against my palm. This wasn't just peace, it was power, the kind you build, protect, and share. Karen thought she could drain us, but she didn't get it. You don't mess with a grid or a neighborhood that knows how to fight back. So, what do you think? Drop a comment. Ever had a Karen in your life? Hit subscribe if you're ready for more tales like this.